I'm Ric Edelman. You've probably heard about 3D printing, but what about 4D printing? Stay tuned for the newest technology involving everything from running shoes to human organs. Also, if you have only a few years left on your mortgage, should you bother refinancing it? And how do you react to change? Life change, I mean. You'll enjoy this week's segment of The Other Side of Money. All that and more on this edition of The Truth About Money.
This program is funded in part by TD Ameritrade. At TD Ameritrade, we support investors and independent registered investment advisors every day, providing access to tools, research, and educational resources that help you pursue your goals with confidence.
I'm Ed Burns. I've spent a lot of time around cameras. However, I've never actually swallowed one before. Till now. It's a camera the size of a pill that lets your doctor see inside of you. That's kind of awesome.
Technology is evolving. We believe the way to invest should evolve as well. A prospectus is available at 1-800-iShares, which includes investment objectives, risks, fees, expenses, and other information that you should read and consider carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal.
I'm Ric Edelman. The truth about money is good credit makes life a lot easier. But how do you create a record that lenders will like? The answer is just dollars and cents.
Hey Rick, I got a question for you. I use my debit card to pay for everything, but I was wondering if I should start using a credit card to just build up some credit for my future.
Yes, you absolutely should. Debit cards are terrific, but they don't demonstrate your credit worthiness, and that's equally important. The only way you're eventually going to one day be able to buy a car or a house is to demonstrate to a lender that you are somebody who deserves getting a loan. Nobody likes to be first in the world of lending. They want to know that someone else has lent you money and you've demonstrated a good record at repaying that money. So best place to start? A credit card. And you have to make sure you use the credit cards correctly. Here's the basic rule of thumb. What you want to do is use the credit card, and then when the bill shows up, pay the bill on time. Never be late. Never miss a payment. Never bounce a check. If you do any of those things, you will damage your credit record, and you will find it very difficult to get a loan in the future. And if you do somehow manage to get a loan, you'll end up paying a higher interest rate and higher fees for that loan. So yes, get a credit card, use it, and use it properly so that you build yourself a good credit record instead of a bad one. From California's movie studios to New York's theater district, we recently asked just one question, Celebrity Edition. What's the best financial advice you ever got?
I think I got the best advice the way everybody got the best advice from their parents, which was, do not spend any more than you make. And, mind your pennies and make sure you save. It's the best advice I ever got.
Well, probably from my parents. My parents were both Depression-era children, so they had a very strong savings culture. And my dad taught me to save automatically. Pay yourself first, right? Take your savings out and then figure out what you have left to spend. And my mother taught me to buy and hold, so that, classic Warren Buffett type investor, know the kind of companies that you're investing in and then hold on to those companies. Yes.
My dad, who was in the service, told me when I was going into the Marines when I was 18 years old, he said, keep a lot of small bills and a couple $100s in your locker. And it was great advice because guys in the military are terrible with money and they start selling things and you can pick up a lot of things cheap, which I did. And then my mom, when I came on the police department, she said there was deferred compensation. And I came out of the Marines, we didn't have anything like that. So I didn't really know what it was, but I maxed out from the time I got on the police department till the time I left. So when I left the police department, I had a pretty nice little nest egg for me.
You wonder, will I ever have enough money to retire? That's one of the many questions I was asked recently during a Q&A session in Frederick, Maryland's historic Weinberg Theater.
Hi, Rick. I have a TSP account, and I have a former 401k that I've put into an IRA. And then my parents passed away, so I have some money from them. My question is, I did borrow from my 401k at the government to buy a home. Now, I know I want to retire in 5 to 8 years. Should I take the money I've inherited to pay off my bills, my credit cards, or my TSP loan?
Well, we got a lot going on here. And that's
started late.
And that's great because you're aware of all of the different things that are happening. One of the big mistakes that we find people making, and you're not making this mistake, is that they act in a silo. They say, I've got this block of money over here, how should I invest it? And they have no regard to other things that are going on in their life. So you're aware of the bigger picture of what's happening, and that's the first place to start. You've got money in your thrift savings plan at your current job. You've got money in an IRA from a prior job. You have an inheritance in another account. You own a home. You have credit card debt, and you want to retire in 5 to 8 years. That's a wonderful description of your situation. And that is all that it really takes to achieve financial success. People often say to me, well, what do I need to do to be able to achieve success? And the answer is real simple. You need to become an expert on your situation. That's it. You don't need to become an expert in tax law, estate law, insurance, investments, or macroeconomic global theory. You don't need to become experts at that. That's my job. That's the job of financial advisors that you turn to. It's the wonderful thing when you go to the doctor. What do? You say, Doc, it hurts when I go like this. Leave it to the doctor to say, don't do that. So you don't have to be an expert in the diagnosis. You don't have to be an expert in the prescription plan. You just need to be an expert in knowing where it hurts. So you have figured that out really well, and that's the key point, because I can't begin to tell you how often we talk with people and they have no idea about anything. They have no idea how much money they're earning. They have no idea how much money they have in savings. They have no idea how much money they owe in debt. They have no aspirations or clue as to when they might quit working or what they might do after they stop working. And if you're that kind of off in the space, there's not a whole lot that we can really do for you. So you've mastered, you haven't realized it, but you've mastered the toughest part, which is really self-awareness. Now, having said that, you're looking for the answer to the question, what do I do with all of this? I haven't the foggiest idea. What's the value of the house? What's the mortgage balance on the house? What kind of a mortgage is it? What's the interest rate on the mortgage? How long do you plan on staying in the house? Are you able to afford the monthly payment on that house right now? And if you aren't going to stay in the house for very much longer, where are you going to go after that? Where, in fact, do you want to retire? And would you have the intention of buying in that new retirement location? That's just the questions we want to ask about regarding the mortgage. I haven't even talked about how much credit card debt do you have? How many credit cards? What are the interest rates on those credit cards? What are the monthly payments on those credit cards? Are you still adding to the credit card balances? And do you have any money in cash reserves we might be able to apply to paying off those credit card balance debts that you've got? And then we haven't even talked about your thrift savings plan or the IRA and so on. So an hour-long or two conversation will help us flush all of that out, and then you'll be amazed, but the answers will emerge. It'll become clear, it'll be obvious, and best part, it'll be easy to implement, and you'll be well on your way to achieving the fundamental goal you raised of retiring in 5 to 8 years. So meet with a financial advisor, and that's your very first step.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Rick, if Congress wants to encourage people to save for retirement, why don't they increase the maximum amount that you can contribute to an IRA? I believe it's $5,000 until you reach a certain age.
There's a simple reason Congress doesn't want to allow you to save even more. The more you put into an IRA, the less tax revenue Congress gets today, because that contribution you make to the IRA is tax deductible. Now, some people do a Roth IRA, that's another conversation. But the bottom line is, if you take $5 grand and put it in an IRA, that's $5 grand of income the IRS does not tax. And that costs the Congress money. They've already got a budget deficit problem. The last thing they want to do is make that worse. In other words, there's a competing conflict of interest here. Congress wants you to save for the future, but Congress also wants you to produce taxable income so it can generate revenue today. So there's an inherent conflict there, and that's why Congress puts a ceiling of it at $5,000. People over the age of 50 can do more. There's another interesting argument behind this. Congress recognizes an interesting element of the field of behavioral finance. Rich people are the people who are more likely to contribute to an IRA. Does anybody here want to know why? It is kind of obvious, isn't it? Rich people have the money, so of course they're able to save for their retirement. The reason poor people aren't doing it is they don't have the money. So Congress's attitude is, if we make it even easier to contribute more, let's raise the limit from $5,000 to $10,000, guess who the people are who are going to be taking advantage of that? Rich people. So it becomes a game where the only people who are being benefited are the people who really don't need the benefit. So where Congress is increasing its energy is in figuring out ways to get lower income Americans to participate rather than getting richer Americans to participate even more. So for all of those reasons, that's why the ceiling is only $5,000.
Thank you.
What does an optimal portfolio do? A, makes the most money. B, takes the least risk. C, incurs the lowest cost. D, tries to blend high returns with low risk. We'll be back with the answer right after this.
21st century technology is reshaping our world. 3D printers are one of the most important developments. And Avi Reichental, a leading developer in 3D printing, says it won't be long before 3D printing becomes 4D printing. Listen to what he has to say. So 3D printing is already here, and some folks are already starting to talk about 4D printing. Yes. Talk about that.
It's interesting. All the leading researchers around the world are thinking about how do we come up with intelligent materials that will form certain geometries intelligently and will be able to construct and then deconstruct and become something else. And so,
give me an example of what that might be.
Well, let's say that you wanted to create this guitar, but you wanted the guitar to be pre-programmed from tiny little bits and atoms that would know how to organize themselves intelligently into a guitar. And when you no longer wanted the guitar, these bits and atoms will decompose themselves and organize themselves into a box.
So I'm thinking of the toy Transformers.
Exactly.
It goes from a car to a robot back to a car.
So, except it knows how to do it itself. You don't have to organize it. And I'm even thinking 5D, and what that means to me is not only the ability for bits and atoms to organize themselves into a recognizable and functional form, but have the intelligence to become fully functional. So it has the circuitry and the intelligence. How do you embed all of that into materials so that they could be, so that one day you could print your own cell phone and it actually works?
How far away do you think those technologies are?
I think this is a decade plus. It's not in the here and now. Having said that, in some basic forms, we began to embed intelligent circuitry into flying objects, and we're able to actually fly a miniaturized airplane that instead of flaps had morphing wings that had all of the circuitry and the intelligence embedded into it. So it's possible today, but it's probably going to be a decade plus before it becomes commercially viable.
As you talk about the idea of intelligent machines through 4D and 5D, is there a danger or a risk that these autonomous machines might turn around and harm humans?
I think that the danger, or what I call the rule of unintended consequences, already exists even with 3D printing. See gun printing that's been in the news, see piracy, look at some of the challenges that we have with our antiquated patent system today. And what happens when you do it with drugs? I mean, there are some people that advocate that they should be able to do all of this with drug and food. So we're going to have, as a society, we're going to have to wrestle with all these issues, you know. We're going to have to deal with them on a practical level because they're real, they're here. The rate of change is accelerating. And every day I see news articles that tell me that these issues and problems and challenges and opportunities, you know, are at our doorstep.
So love it or fear it, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
Tell me what this all means for investors.
What's required for investors is to look at how this technology changes business model, and what's required by companies is to ask, am I spending enough time reinventing my business model? Because at times like this, business model innovation is every bit as important as technological innovation.
What should kids headed to college focus on?
Well, I like to start with elementary school. That way, by the time that they get to college, they already know about the power of creativity and imagination and entrepreneurship and self-sufficiency. And if we can equip kids with the power and empowerment to believe in themselves, we can create generations of disruptive, entrepreneurial, inventive kids that will have a real competitive advantage.
Sounds like a very exciting future.
And I'm passionate about it, so I spend I spend a lot of my times with 8-year-olds because they get it. They don't need the explanation.
How is technology changing our world? Find out every week on The Truth About Money.
What does an optimal portfolio do? The answer is D. It tries to blend high returns with low risk.
Financial advisors like me work to help you build a better financial future. And each week, Anderson Wozni and Brandon Corso join me on the radio to help people find solutions to their money matters. We're talking with Fred. He's in New Jersey. Welcome, Fred. You're on the air.
Thank you. Love your show.
Thank you.
First question. I have 9 years left on a mortgage, $240,000, $2,800 a month. If I refinance and take a 30-year out mortgage out, it's only going to cost me $1,150 a month. I'm 71. I'd rather have the money now and don't care if I ever pay off my mortgage. What's your theory on that?
I agree completely.
Go do it.
Did that shock you?
That's it. No, I'm glad you agree.
Yeah, your thought process makes 100% accuracy, and I think a lot of folks are like, huh, what? Huh? There's got to be more to it than that. Yeah. Let's just go through this again of what he just said. He's got a 10-year mortgage that he's got a basically $3,000 a month payment. By refinancing to a 30-year loan, his payment drops from $3,000 a month to about $1,000 a month. He's got $2,000 in his pocket that he didn't have before.
And he said, I'd rather have the money now.
Right.
He's absolutely right. It's his money.
The alternative is to pay off the mortgage, which means you take your cash, give it to the bank where you'll never see it again. Well, wouldn't you rather have the $2,000 a month in your pocket?
Well, and he also said that when he passes away, he doesn't care if there's a mortgage because he's got other assets that are much more valuable than the mortgage. So,
and besides that, when he's dead, he's dead.
Yeah. Why does he care? The only reason I would think it wouldn't make sense would be only if Fred's not going to stay in that house for a period of, I would say, 2-3 years or longer.
And the reason you say
well,
that is?
Just because to refinance, you're going to have costs. Let's call it $2,000. So the only reason it's going to make sense is if you're going to recoup all that cost, and usually that takes a period of time.
So that's a logistic element to the conceptual strategy, and it's a valid point. You need to stay in the house long enough to make the refinancing worthwhile.
Yeah, it sounds to me that if he's going to save $2,000 a month, he's probably going to recoup that cost real quick.
I'll take it a step further. Because if he goes from a 10-year mortgage payment to a 30-year mortgage payment, much more of his new payment will be interest than his current payment, which means he'll get a much bigger tax deduction than he's currently getting, which means the savings will be even bigger on an after-tax basis. And if in the course of refinancing he's able to further lower the interest rate, which he very well may be able to do, then the savings get even better from there. So the bottom line is this is all to the good. Fred, you got a great idea. Good for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
When you're flat broke, you can't even afford to laugh. Unless, of course, you're a comic, and then it's your job to make people laugh at your expense.
I got audited one time. God, have you guys ever been audited? Awful. It's an awful experience. They call you up. You know, they told me I got to provide the last 5 years of tax record. They got me for $13,000 because I owed them $13,000. I didn't know. I don't know anything about taxes. They don't teach you that in school. I took a year of geometry for what? An entire year of geometry. Nothing about taxes. How many sides on a dodecahedron? 12. How many write-offs can I have on a W-2? No clue. No idea. Nothing. You know what, public school? If there's something that I could potentially go to jail for or be financially penalized for, teach it to me. Please, teach it to me.
The one thing I like about this bad economy is that people are always trying to give me discounts on stuff, even on stuff I don't even need. Like the other day, I was getting fitted for a tuxedo for a wedding. Halfway through the thing, the girl whispers up to me. She's like, hey, look, I don't know if you know this, but for like $10 extra, I can get you a top hat and a cane. Which is great, because as you guys know, it's every single woman's dream to go home with Mr. Peanuts. What?
I just got engaged about a month ago. We actually met on a dating website called ICan'tBelieveItGotToThis.com. Yeah, we moved in together after living, we were dating about 6 months, and we moved in together. My friends were like, are you sure you want to move that fast? That's a pretty big commitment. I'm like, this is New York City. I need rent money right now. I am ready to commit. This is not the borough to be a commitment phobe, you know what I mean? Like, she'd be bragging to her girlfriends like, oh, I finally found a man who just doesn't fear commitment. I'm like, I don't fear commitment. I fear eviction. You know what I mean? Like,
if you could ask a financial planner just one question, what would it be? Here's one I hear all the time. What is the one question you wish all clients would ask?
How can I save more? People always want to know, what type of investment return I can get, what type of performance do you provide, but really they should be asking, what can I do to save more? How should I structure my budget to do so?
One of the things I would say is, are you a fiduciary? Are you operating in my best interest? I think there's a misnomer out there with people who go to work with advisors who they think are, in fact, acting in the best interest, and in many cases, there aren't. So I think that's the key component to making sure that we're doing what we're eating what we're cooking, basically. And that's what we do here, is basically as advisors, what we're advising our clients to do, we're also doing it as well.
When it comes to financial planning, you have to be in it for the long term, and that takes patience. If you don't have patience, you can learn it. Or so I've been told. Here's my wife and business partner, Jean, on patience in the other side of money.
Patience is important, and dogs are the epitome of patience. Because think about it, they sit around and they wait for us all day. They're sitting around at the house, just napping and waiting for mom and dad to come home or the kids to come home. And, they know how to relax and wait. We have a tendency to just want everything so fast in our day. We have no patience in the supermarket, on the roads. If we just took a breath every once in a while and let some patience into our day, I think we'd all be a little bit happier. We have a lesson to learn from our dogs. It means that we can relax with who we are, where we are, when we are. We need to be more patient with ourselves. We need to be a little easier with ourselves. We have a tendency to dwell on the past and worry about the future, and it's hard to be here right now. I love walking my dogs because they're constantly making me stop, and because there's a little leaf there that's very important to them that they must sniff, or there's something that they need to dig at, or, they're asking me to stop and take a moment with them and appreciate where we are when we're taking our walk. And so we can take that into our daily life and just stop and take a moment. We live in such a fast-paced world. We get up in the morning, we got our coffee, we get to work, we get da-da-da-da-da-da. Our pets are teaching us to just take a breath. Life is constantly changing. Our day is changing, our jobs are changing, our family is changing, health. Everything constantly changes, and so our pets are great teachers in helping us take in the moment.
Thanks, Jean. A few words before we go. Major changes in technology are happening every day, and 4D and 5D printing will radically improve your life. And see if refinancing your home loan to a new 30-year mortgage can benefit you. Because that's the truth about money. I'm Ric Edelman. See you next time. To learn more about the topics we discussed on this episode and a chance to ask your questions, visit our website at truthaboutmoneytv.com. And stay connected by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter.